Hey there. So my next guest took kind of a winding path into the esports world. And like when you hear his story, you'll be like, how did he like get here? And it was passion, it was drive. He wanted to do this. So I know you guys are going to love this one. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gamerpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bradford Carlton. Today, I have a very special guest with us. I have Andre Pakenham. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And where do you hail from?
Well, I'm currently in Kansas, grew up and learned about life in Wisconsin. So it's been basically a Midwest life for me. So
nothing but snow. You were born in it, molded by it.
Exactly. Well, unfortunately, in Kansas, we don't have a ton. Usually it snows very, very briefly, melts, turns into a soggy mess, and then we're back at it again. So it's a cycle. It's pretty great.
I grew up in California. I live in Las Vegas now. I try to avoid snow. I lived in Ohio, just south of Cleveland for like 9 years. I know what snow is. I try to avoid it.
That's probably smart. Yeah, I wish I could, but my wife keeps me here, so I'm stuck. Sorry.
It's all good. 9 years in Ohio is all I have to say.
Yep, that's fair. Yeah.
All right. So Andrew, I like getting the show just started right into it. So why don't you begin by just telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Well, I didn't really start on this path in a conventional way. I went to school for golf course management. Sounds kind of crazy. Yes, there is a major for it. I know. No one ever believes me. Moved down to Kansas City to do that and really grinded that for about 6 years and got to the point where I kind of burnt myself out just because I didn't really realize what off days were back then. So, being 32 now, that's just kind of how I spent my early years after college, and then tried to transition to something that was potentially more of a career than just a kind of more fun job. Worked my way into the financial advising world, insurance, stuff like that. It was nice to be able to learn that, but I realized very quickly that I was not a salesman. That's just not my personality. I don't like pushing people to do something that they don't feel comfortable with. That seems to be what their specialty is. So I was like,
depends on the company for sure.
Well, yeah, for sure. Not everyone. But for the most part, it was one of those things that it was nice to meet people, but just wasn't for me. And while I was towards the end of that, I started something. I've always liked video games, always had a passion for them, never realized that there was career potential out of it. And that's something that's obviously changed a lot over the last couple of years, where they're obviously booming. And honestly, we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg with it yet because it's such a big market overall. But in my spare time, I've always been a Xbox Call of Duty player. That I'm simple like that. I never had a PC. The PlayStation side of things, I never wanted to mess with. I'm like, no, Xbox always wins that battle. I'm always on that side of it. But I started a league for fun. Sorry, this is a very long backstory. I apologize. I'm not sure if this is what you're getting.
Keep going. It's all good.
Fair enough. But I started a amateur league for Xbox players because obviously PlayStation being the home for the professional side of things, that's where all of the, structured competitive places to play were. So kind of found a small niche for me. It blew up into something that, now we're sitting there with a really good following, very good standing in the community, have had a lot of the very high-end amateur players compete, because that's what we aim to do is provide for the amateur community. That's kind of the wild west in all esports, and mainly Call of Duty, because it's just chaos. But it kind of evolved into a partnership with a company that's partnered with Renegades, and now I got hired on full-time with Renegades / their parent company. So there's a lot more backstory there, but I'm trying to not talk everyone's ear off. So
it's all good. I'm sure we're about to talk to it about
sure.
It here in a couple
Fair
seconds.
Enough. Yeah.
Before we do that though, I start every interview with a single question. So I'm going to ask you just like I ask everybody else. Mm-hmm. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how weird are you, Andrew?
That depends on the setting. Oh man, if I'm home with my wife, I would say probably an 8 or 9. If I don't know, I'm pretty weird, and it really. Let's just say
what makes you weird? Like what is it? Like I don't want people just come on. I'm a 12. Like, why? I like anime.
No, I don't know. It's probably just at times, if I'm in a great mood, sometimes my personality just gets kind of goofy. Like I like to, screw around with my wife or friends and just kind of, I don't know, do. See, this is such an open-ended question, and I really have no way to answer it accurately or sound even remotely confident about it. Let's just say a 7, and it's my personality just trying to come through it, and it can be very goofy at times. So let's just say
good.
that.
All right. So Andrew, this is the Gamerpreneur podcast. So I do need your gaming cred. You may be doing Call of Duty now, but when did you first start playing video games?
I mean, very first started probably with like N64 back in the day. I have to say, a very dominant Mario Kart 64 player. I don't think I ever lost. Enjoyed that game thoroughly, but it really kind of took off, I would say, when I was in college, or actually just before that. That's kind of when the online gaming started, or that's when it became an option. And I was so blown away by it that I just couldn't believe that I could compete against people across the country, world, whatever it is, online in a video game. And even to this day, that's still crazy to me. But that's really where I started playing. Never really took it overly seriously, just played with friends, but found that I just loved it more than anything. Like it was go to class, come back, and play Xbox. It was just nonstop. But now that I'm obviously older and my thumbs don't work the way that they used to, it's something that I almost more so enjoyed, being like a leadership type role, management type thing, than I did actually playing, which is even more rewarding. So
very cool. All right. Other than COD, what do you play today?
I've tried to get into Valorant. I'm very much so new at the mouse and keyboard thing. So I'm trying my best to learn that. And I'm sure it does not look very pretty if you're on my team. So trying to learn that. I want to get into Tarkov at some point. I have some buddies that are slowly but surely getting PCs. So I'm trying to get the old heads into PC as well. So we need to try something different, because playing, PGA and Warzone and whatever else gets a little bit old. So we need to try something different.
I tell you, I feel your pain. Like everybody's like, yeah, do the mouse to like look, and I try it and like it just doesn't. So I just go and buy controllers and just to whatever to hook to my PC.
Yeah, I still use my controller for like whenever I play Call of Duty on my PC, but for the most part, I'm trying to stick to mouse and keyboard. It's just so foreign to me. I don't know if I'll ever fully get it, but it's a battle.
All right. One last gaming related question, then we'll kind of get into what you do and your backstory and how you got here and all that. You're only a couple years younger than I am, but if you had to pick, one game as your all-time favorite, which one is it?
All-time favorite.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why this is such a tough question for gamers.
Well, I mean, I think I'd have to go with the Call of Duty game, but there's a couple that I really, really love, and there's a couple, like Black Ops 2 was probably one of the best competitive games I played. But like, Modern Warfare 3 was a blast. It's probably the most fun I had with my buddies playing a game. So probably those two. And if I go, I'd say probably Mario 64, or Mario Kart 64. That was such a blast. And, bringing that system to college and, not wanting to go out some nights, you just play with your friends and whatever else, that was a blast as well. So those three, probably the top three for sure. Just great memories there. Absolutely.
All right. I love it. All right. Let's get over to the preneur part. So what is your exact role today?
I am the director of esports for Gametime Gaming and part of the 2-person management team for the professional organization Renegades.
Okay. And what do you do?
For Gametime, so they are based up in Auburn Hills, Michigan. They have a physical location, which is like a gaming esports bar type of setup. Obviously, with COVID, it kind of changed what they were able to do. So I was brought on to really help grow their online presence. They did some like LAN events there, but they didn't really do a whole lot online. So we're trying to really expand into the amateur scene with tournaments, leagues, whatever else. And right now we have a pretty large Rocket League circuit, which does catch the eye of some lower end our LCS teams, which is great. Obviously, the Call of Duty League that I started, which was kind of what got me started with this, because they were looking to expand into established leagues. They brought that on. That's part of it. We are just getting started into Valorant. We have a Smash tournament, which is basically headlined by a old Smash Pro. So really trying to grow into that, just to provide a stable and trustworthy place for a lot of these higher end amateur players to compete in. And then the Renegade side of things, obviously helping them do, whatever they can social wise and content wise, and, helping steer that ship. So,
okay, fantastic. Now, my focus of the show is my guests, not necessarily the organizations they work for.
Sure.
So I'd like to ask, was it a difficult transition going from caring about geese and changing winter grass to summer grass over to the esports space?
No, I don't think so, because the thing that I did love about the golf industry was I got to connect with people, and that's always been what I love to do in really any job, but before that it was, during college, I was a waiter and loved being able to talk to customers there, which is funny because when I went to tried the career of, financial advising and insurance, I didn't like that side of it, because there was just so much pressure to make that sale or get them to, get the extra package or whatever. And I'm like, that's not what I like. But, when people come to you or, are in an environment that's more conducive to their personalities coming out, that's really where I enjoy it. And in esports, you obviously see the good side and the bad side of people at times. When competition's involved, sometimes emotions will overflow. But for the most part, these kids are great people. And so many of them, even if they know they aren't going pro, they just want to have fun, have a community they can hang out in, and, place that has people that have similar goals. And, I guess, it's just a similar situation in terms of my ability to connect with people. And I really enjoy that. So,
okay. How does it feel calling them kids when you're only 32?
Well, I mean, not all of them are. Most of them, I would say, are probably in the college age range. Some might be younger, some might be a little bit older, but I really can call them kids, because there are a whole bunch of them that, call me dad or whatever, just because that's, they realize that I am a little bit older, obviously, probably older for the gaming scene overall, compared to kind of what it's evolved to. But no, I mean, it's crazy to see how good these players are. Like, I thought I was good when I was younger, and seeing what they could do. Obviously, technology is different now, but it's a lot. It's incredible to see what they can do, and see that skill gap from the professional player to the people that I see nightly really isn't that much different. It's they're closing in quickly. So
absolutely. Okay, so I want to ask, because you made this like hard transition from golf course management, financial services. Now you're in esports. It doesn't really seem like any of that was related. So maybe there's somebody out there who's like, what, I would love to get into esports, but I'm a plumber, or I'm an electrician, or I'm something else that doesn't seem like it would be related in any way. How did you get into this? Like, was it just I decided to apply, or I had to study? What was it?
I actually just had somebody reach out to me on Twitter and kind of asked this as well, because they were looking for some type of avenue to get into it. And I got very fortunate. So just a quick story or recap on how I kind of got started and how it all worked out. Basically, my Call of Duty League started from a random Discord post. So I'm sorry, Reddit post. And I basically put it out there one day. We had 20 teams within a week and got started. And with that, I needed a lot of help early on, because I didn't know the best ways to manage it, how to structure it, all that. So one of the people that actually reached out to help out from day one was who is now the GM of Renegades. So he wasn't at that position then, but he applied, or didn't apply because I didn't have a system in place, but he asked to help out, and he was a huge part of how we kind of got started, dug our heels in, built a name for ourselves. And his story is obviously different, but he ended up being the GM of Renegades, and also being the leading force in Gametime as well. So once he was kind of in the position to take it on full time, that's when he reached out to me, asked me to, if I would be willing to, hear him out on an offer. And this was where I was at the very tail end of the insurance and financial advising part of things. And obviously with COVID, business wasn't booming, let's put it that way. It was very difficult as a small business owner to really get people to, want to spend money or switch or do whatever when there's so much uncertainty. So it was kind of perfect timing. But what I would tell people that aren't as lucky enough as I was to kind of have that connection, you have to be willing to do a lot of what you're passionate about for free. The Call of Duty League, I did without any type of monetary income from it for about 2 years, and put a lot of time into it, and my wife could attest to this, because I told her very early on, it started out as something fun. And I realized quickly that there was potential there. And, God love her. She stuck in there while I casted matches every night, and, spent afternoons and evenings dealing with Discord issues and whatever else. But you have to be willing to put the time in without getting paid for it. Like, I have a lot of casters now that ask to get paid. It's like, but I mean, have you really casted before? Like, I'm not going to pay you because you want to cast. It's because you have to be good enough to warrant getting paid. And that's a lot of issues with people trying to get in the esports scene. Like, you have to prove your value first. So
certainly. All right. What makes you good at this? What are your unique skills? What is it that people need to have in order to do what you do?
Patience, for sure. You have to have a lot of patience. But realistically, it's a lot about just being, I'm not the most organized person, but when it comes to, doing things the right way, having some type of system in place is huge, because there's a lot of different things that happen at all times. I'm up to a couple different leagues now, obviously tournament circuits as well. So there's a lot of different people signing up for things, and, sign-ups starting, sign-ups closing, league starting, Twitch schedules, casting, finding there's a lot of holes to fill. So you have to be on top of kind of what's happening at all times, and being structured that way is very important. Being organized is very important. Patience realistically is a pretty big part of it, because not everything's going to go perfectly at all times. There's a lot of people complaining about, rules being broken that you need to spend 30 minutes talking to teams about to sort it all out, because someone's telling half truth, the other team's telling the other half of the truth, but no one's telling the whole truth. It's like, all right, come on. But the final thing I would say is being genuine, because these players can really figure out quickly if you're doing it for the right reasons or not. There's a lot of leagues that I've seen come and go, or have heard stories of leagues just, doing signups, getting entry fees, and then, dashing. Like, well, that's not that's not good for the scene at all. So just, being the same person from start to finish, that's kind of what I've always tried to do, and sticking to your guns, and being confident enough to tell people something they don't want to hear. That's so important, because stick to what you know, who you are, and
okay,
it'll work out, hopefully.
Fantastic. Now, as you were and as you currently are growing into these roles, where are you turning to kind of grow yourself? What resources are you using? How are you learning more?
A lot of it is trying to just experience as much as possible. I have to say, I haven't really had enough time to really, dive deep into what resources are available to me. A lot of the professional side of things, with Renegades, I try to just pay as much attention to what the GM Josh does, who he talks to, kind of how he handles himself in meetings and whatever else. The sales side of things, trying to get sponsors or whatever else. I've obviously dealt with sales before, so that's not a huge issue. But with the players and the amateur side of things, it's a lot of just seeing what other people are doing for the most part. Trying to grow from what they're doing, but also be different, and trying to innovate a little bit on my side of things. So it's kind of a little bit of everything, pulling from other people, trying to be creative, trying different ideas, and always trying to provide the best value possible. That's really what I've always tried to do, and that's what we're always going to continue to do for sure.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Andrew, I'd like you to go back in time with me to when you first posted on Reddit. Okay.
Oh my!
I go back in time, and you get to talk to little Andrew back then. It was only a year or 2 years ago.
2 years, yep, 2 years ago.
Okay. And if you tell him everything that's going to happen over the next couple of years of his life, but there's one thing he has to know. What is that one thing?
Probably don't care what people think, because obviously there's always going to be haters, or I guess not haters, because I haven't gotten to that point where I have haters yet. Let's get real. But there's always going to be people that are just negative, and we'll try to find ways to find the bad in anything. Luckily, we've gotten to a point where, for the most part, almost everyone enjoys how's it going, and enjoys the work and product that we put forward. But early on, there were definitely people that, just wanted to try to make life difficult. And, if I always had that confidence to not care about what they were saying, and, didn't worry about them bad mouthing what we were doing, life would have been a lot easier for sure. So,
okay, beautiful. Do you have any other advice for anybody looking to get into the esports space?
Any advice? It's really hard to say, because I don't know if there's one really like proven good path to reach your goals or have your dreams come true. It's just find a niche of some kind. That's what I would say, because getting started is the hardest part. Like, there's obviously leagues like mine that you can go and help out with and whatever else, but there's a lot of opportunity in the scene as a whole. The professional scene is a little bit tougher, because it's a lot more about luck than anything else. And but starting out, kind of just to get your feet wet, find some area where you can become really good at, or make a name for yourself and try to grow that from there. So.
Beautiful. All right. Now, about you a little more personally, if I can. Okay. You see, I believe that we learn the most in our life from our failures, not necessarily our successes, because you can succeed and not have any idea what happened. Just take it, right? Take the win. Okay. Yep. But if you fail, you got to figure out what went wrong. You got to be able to iterate off of it and grow. Yep. So I'd like to ask you, Andrew, what do you consider your biggest failure in life, and what did you learn from it?
In life, oh man, in life, that's a good question. I would probably say the career switches that I tried to make after the golf industry. It was going from the golf industry, which is something that I knew like the back of my hand and felt very confident in. I kind of try to make a switch because money wasn't where I wanted it to be in the golf industry. That, very much like the esports scene, is a lot about luck on the positions that you get. And, going from being the director of golf to a GM, or, like hospitality manager, something like that. It's a lot about luck and about who in the scene. So I wanted to switch to something where I had more control, and being the owner of a business was not something that I was very good at. I was still pretty young, and that's not really an excuse. I just wasn't overly ready for it, unfortunately, and didn't perform the way that I should have. But at the same time, I learned a lot about how to kind of adapt to the situations that are in front of me, which was very, very helpful. It really helped me focus on what I'm doing now, obviously. Kind of helped it come full circle a little bit. And now I feel like no matter what challenges are in front of me, whether it be business being a little bit slower, trying to find ways to make that change, trying to try to be different, try to evolve, but also stay true to my roots and whatever else. Those are things that I think I kind of learned from that experience, and obviously it's very humbling as well. So
all right, wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Now, on the flip side, what is something you're working to improve on in yourself today?
Trying to improve. Let's see here. Even though I mentioned earlier about being organized, how important that is, I still have to improve on that a ton, because I was always kind of just trying to run things by the seat of my pants, because I was kind of good at it to multitask and be able to handle a couple of things. But there's a lot of things that I want to get more efficient at. Being able to have things set up in a way where it makes my life so much easier down the road a little bit, whether it be trying to, give new players into our leagues or tournaments a rundown on how they work. So, having it set up where there's a system in place for them to learn that ahead of time instead of just sending me DMs incessantly. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't have enough time to respond to 20 to 40 DMs. But, just small things like becoming more efficient and finding ways to solve problems before they even come up. So,
okay. The 5-year interview question, because every interview requires it. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see esports in 5 years?
I guess I'll handle esports first. I think we're to see it. It's hard to know for sure, obviously, but it's going to continue to grow, and I think a lot of that is going to kind of happen in the academia side of things. So colleges, high schools. One of the leagues we've started to get into is high school, and there are obviously pretty established high school leagues out there, but I think teachers and parents overall haven't completely bought into the esports world. So once they buy in, that's really when everything's going to take off, because esports really isn't hurting for investors or people trying to get their piece of the pie. It's a lot about the parents that maybe don't believe in it yet, and once they do, once high schools kind of change their curriculum from just being your typical algebra, history, science, whatever else, to more of like a tech type of curriculum, or obviously having both, that's when we're really going to see people or see the esports scene start to explode. For myself, I just want to get to the point where I can have a true impact on the amateur scene. It's still not very established for the vast majority of professional esports. Like there's the lower end pro scene, which is covered pretty well. There's a structure for it, but the players that are trying to work their way to that point, there's really no set way to get there. It's a lot about just playing a lot and hoping you get noticed. And I want to make sure that there's a system in place where it's easier and more, I guess, reliable for these players that have that talent to really find their way to, where they want to go. So, okay.
Fantastic. Andrew, this has been a wonderful interview. How do people find you? Where are you on social, contact information, all that, please?
My social is, that's the one thing I wish I would have done early on. I never plugged myself. I didn't really care. I was like, yeah, I'm new to Twitter. I don't care enough about my own personal brand. I should have very early on, but I didn't. My Twitter is @DrewBrochill88. There's a backstory behind that, but I won't get into it because it's not worth it. That's where I basically respond to everything. Obviously the league Twitter and all that. That's where you can find me, mainly on Twitter, either talking about sports or esports, somewhere around there. So always looking to debate some type of football or basketball or something like that. So that's, you can find me. But outside of that, I don't really know what other contact information is important. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Right? It's Twitter or die, right? And that's it.
My Twitter is heinous. It's bad. All right. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share, or anything I didn't ask you think we still need to cover?
I don't think so. I guess I'm not sure who usually watches this or tunes in, but obviously there's a ton of interest in the esports scene now. And, your question about how do people get into it, and that's such a big question and really important, because there are so many people that are trying to find their footing in a career in the esports scene. And what I'll tell people is don't give up. It's really easy to think maybe it's a career that is unattainable. It's definitely not. There are so many more jobs opening up, and even if they aren't paying right away, it's a start for sure. Get your foot in the door, put your ego aside. It's something where you have to learn and get your experience and be trusted within your communities first before you can really take off. So that's
beautiful. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. This was a fantastic interview.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man. It was great.
Absolutely. And for everybody else, I'm going to remind you all, don't be just a gamer, be a gamerpreneur.